Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great? Good. Just a friendly reminder that the Redneck Preppy can also be found on Rumble and Odyssey. Links can be found in the description below. You may have seen my recent video which explored how accurate 50-year-old Ely 10X was. Today, we're going to beat that by a few years and see if rimfire ammunition produced by the Soviet Union all the way back in 1967 can shoot in 2025. We're going to follow the same basic path that I did in that earlier video, so sit back and let's find out if Brezhnev era ammo is communist trash or workers' paradise treasure. Well, before we hit the range, let's take a look at and inside the box. If the English text wasn't a clue, this was obviously made for export. Not much information on the box itself. It purports to be first-class ammunition, whatever that means. We have a code here on the side, which I'm presuming means that this was manufactured in November 1967, the same month that the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 242, and that set out the principles for an Arab-Israeli peace settlement. And boy, thank God that happened. Could you imagine ongoing and endless war in the Middle East today? Oh, crazy. On the back, it tells us that it is non-corrosive. Now, I have heard that there was rimfire manufactured in the first part of the 20th century that had mercury-based primers, mercury fulminate to be precise, which is hygroscopic and can attract moisture and lead to rust in your firearm. Now, I don't know if that was actually the case for rimfire, as I haven't seen any examples in the very brief investigation I did on the matter. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Whatever else, though, these primers are billed as non-corrosive. I can't tell you very much about the manufacture of these, unfortunately. There's nothing on the box itself. From what I've gathered, there was an umbrella organization in the Soviet Union which contracted several plants to manufacture rimfire ammunition, and then it was packaged and sold both domestically and internationally. Yes, this is the era of paper packaging, and the USSR was no different. Checking out one of the rounds. Yes, it is steel-cased ammunition. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't ever recall seeing steel-cased rimfire ammunition before. No head stamp. I do feel some sort of lubrication on the bullets themselves, or at least what I presume to be lube. Feels a little bit waxy, and it also feels like there's more than enough to do its job. And that is it, comrade. Let's head out to the range and see how this stuff shoots. Since I wasn't sure how this ammunition was going to perform, and I didn't have much of it, I decided that it would probably be a good idea to only shoot it at 50 yards. Now, along with testing accuracy, I employed a chronograph to see how it performed by the numbers. Now, one difference between the 10X test and today's was that I did do a chamber and barrel clean prior to shooting because my rifle was absolutely filthy. Now, I don't know if that would have an effect on the results for this ammunition, but I mention it just in case. Weather conditions were relatively decent. The temperature was 16 degrees Celsius or 60 Fahrenheit. The wind was officially recorded at 11 kilometers an hour or 6 miles per hour from the northeast, though where I was, it was stronger. And finally, the humidity was 42%. Now, I started off with a few groups to heat up and season the barrel with this ammo's lubricant and to sight the rifle in. Well, that was the plan. The first 5 sighters were actually pretty impressive as a group, so I figured I'd just start shooting groups for real to gather as much data as possible. Unfortunately, the ghosts of long dead but still meddling Marxist-Leninists clearly didn't want an uncouth, laissez-faire capitalist shooting their ammunition. The first problem was that the ammunition was difficult to chamber, more so than when I noted the same with the 1970s Ely Tenix that I had the video about a few weeks ago. Now, I don't know if this clip adequately conveys that, but I had to muscle the bolt home. The second problem was much worse. Of the rounds that I shot, most of them refused to extract. The majority of them needed to be punched out of the chamber with a cleaning rod. In fact, after just 8 rounds fired, I stopped. While extractors for my rifle aren't particularly expensive, I was worried about the one on my bolt, and without a replacement, my trip to the range would have ended that day pretty quickly. So yeah, not exactly what I was hoping for. I'll be honest, going in, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had a feeling that this is going to turn out to be plinking grade ammunition at best, despite its boast of being first class. Now, during my research, I read reports that listed any number of things, that it shot reliably, or it was really dirty, or people suffered a lot of split cases, or misfires, or was either acceptably accurate or unacceptably inaccurate. So how did it actually perform? Well, if you watched the last section, you already know the answer to that question. I can have low standards for ammunition performance, predicated on context, and when it comes to nearly 60-year-old communist manufactured bulk rimfire, I'm going to be fairly forgiving. But this stuff managed to disappoint even my low expectations. The first issue was, of course, the chambering. It's probably unfair to this ammo to try and use it in a rifle with a match-grade chamber. My rifle is ostensibly made for higher-end ammunition, of which, well, this isn't. The fact that it's steel case probably didn't help matters either. That said, unless SAMI modified the specifications for .22 long rifle in recent decades, it didn't. It shouldn't have been that much of an issue. Now, I did measure some of the case dimensions out of curiosity to compare them with SAMI specs for .22 long rifle for both match grade and sporting grade ammunition. And for the most part, this stuff checked out. The rim thickness was 0.04 inches, totally within spec. The rim diameter was 0.277 inches, just slightly smaller than the 0.278 inches that SAMI calls for. And the diameter of the case body at its thickest point was 0.226 inches, about what's required by the specs. There shouldn't have been issues chambering this ammunition, even with the slightly tighter chamber of my CZ. The second and bigger issue was, of course, the extraction. Now, given that the rim was in spec, I shouldn't have had any issues extracting, or at least only had slightly harder than usual extraction due to the steel case expanding in the chamber. Ammunition that has a chance of damaging something, in this case the extractor on my bolt, during regular use, is somewhat concerning. And the chronograph numbers, for what they're worth with such a small sample size, were god-awful. Now, this may have been the hottest ammunition I've ever run through my rifle, with an average speed of 1,151.3 feet per second. The fastest bullet was measured at a speedy 1,197.3 feet per second. The standard deviation was 24.3, and the spread between fastest and slowest bullets was 85.6 feet per second. So what did I actually manage to show with all this? Well, unfortunately, not much. I can't speak to the accuracy because I only really managed to put one real group up, and that was the sighter group. About the only thing I would recommend is don't fire Soviet-era bulk rimfire through a rifle with a match-grade chamber, and have a spare extractor on hand just in case you do. I'm keeping this box for a future test with a more forgiving rifle. Maybe I'm missing a hidden gem. Or maybe not. At any rate, I hope you found today's video to at least be vaguely entertaining and mildly informative. As always, I hope you have yourself nothing but a fantastic day at the ranges. Take care, and bye-bye.